Hello, my name's Tom Walker. Welcome to this podcast, which I'm recording on behalf of the UK North Blind Sailing Association and the Royal Mersey Yacht Club. With me is Martin Ryan, who is one of the visually impaired members of the club and a keen sailor. Before you hear my conversation with Martin, if you'd like to find out more about opportunities for visually impaired people to go sailing, you can do so by phoning the club's skipper David Owen on 07793 543 529. That's 07793 543 529. And don't worry, if you didn't get a chance to take that number down now, I'll give it you again at the end of this podcast.
My name's Martin Ryan. Used to be a mechanic by trade until my eyesight deteriorated back in 2005. Condition I've got is something called optic atrophy, which is degeneration of the optic nerve, which basically affects my central detail vision. I was introduced to sailing by Rob Owen while I was at a course at Henshaw's. He came and did a little talk about setting up UK North Blind sailing, as all the sailing done before for sailability was actually done down south. So he wanted to bring something up to the northwest area to save people travelling to the south coast. I say I was introduced to it by Rob. We did a weekend sail at Class Menai with a course they had set up, and they did several courses through that year. And after that, I had an introduction into Royal Mersey Yacht Club.
Were you nervous before getting involved?
A little apprehensive. I'd always played about on water when I was a bit younger. My eyesight was good. I used to have a small fishing boat, which I was into sea angling. But I was a little apprehensive as to what would happen with sailing and how it would work at the time, yeah.
And what do you get out of sailing? What do you find good about it, Martin?
It's mixing with people, working as a team, being included in a group. Where if you're visually impaired, you seem to be sort of out on the fringes a little bit, but it seems to draw you back in and get involved as a group and work together.
You've told us there in some detail, Martin, about what you get out of sailing, but what you haven't mentioned, maybe through modesty, is that you're captain of the club. How did that happen?
I got involved in the club. When I say I joined the club 10 years ago, and several years down the line got involved with several different committees, working my way through the committees, and I got asked to be club captain last year, which is a 2-year post. That involves arranging any maintenance on the boats and in the yard, arranging the launching, retrieving of the boats at the beginning of the season, end of the season, and making sure everything's right for all the races through the season.
Does that mean you're very important?
No, not really. I'm just the head of a small team. We all work as a team together. Somebody drive the tractor for me, somebody to use the rigid inflatable boat, somebody to actually collect fuel for the boats through the season. We just all work together, and it works well.
From a practical point of view, what are the limitations on your involvement? What can you do? What can't you do?
There are no limitations as regards to sailing. It depends on the varying degrees of somebody's visual impairment. I do helm the boat. I do everything else on the boat. So there's no real limitations as myself. It all depends on people's limitations they put on themselves effectively. But over a period of time, you build up confidence and you can get involved with anything aboard.
And what about people who have less sight than you? What are the limitations? What are the restrictions on them?
There's always ways around things. The only limitations are the limitations you can put on yourself. If your confidence builds up, there's even a simple app we use on the phone with a compass, and we use the voiceover on the compass, and it works fine. So somebody with no eyesight at all could actually steer a course.
I was going to ask you about helming the boat, because you've just said there that somebody with no sight is able to do that. Just talk me through how that would work.
We tend to only do that. We have a link in through the Royal Mersey Yacht Club with something called the Guillemot Trust. And this is through UK North Blind Sailing. And when we're sailing a boat, not involved in racing, just as a pleasure sail, if somebody's got no eyesight at all, we can still get them on the helm using the compass app, as long as they can feel where the wind's coming from on the cheek, so they know which way the sails need to be set. There's no real limitation as long as you pick up what needs to happen, and there's always somebody there to prompt you and aid you in what you need to do.
Tell me about the other roles that people on a yacht would fulfil. and how they might be adapted for somebody who has less sight than you or a totally blind person?
Well, as regards when people first join UK North or come along to UK North blind sailing, we normally put them in the easiest position on board the boat, which is usually on the jib, which is the smaller sail at the front. So we'll have two people operating the jib, for instance. There will be one each side of the boat, one releasing their line and another one pulling their line in on the other side to tighten the sail up. It's a comfortable position. You're standing up inside the cockpit of the boat with the edge of the cockpit is sort of mid-chest height. So it's a nice, safe boat. So we get people comfortable with that position first. Then once they've become comfortable with that, we can move on to using the main sail. So they're then controlling the main sail. So that'll be from a seated position just in front of the helm. And as they progress through, they can actually helm later on, but that's not normally as part of a race. As part of a race, anything to do with racing, we'll have a sighted crew member on the helm.
Tell me about racing, Martin. You know, where do you sail from? Where do you go to? And how long do they last?
Well, as regards racing with the Royal Mersey Yacht Club, we're racing from between Rock Ferry and New Ferry. The start line is on a boat moored offshore, close to where all the yachts are moored. The racing starts from that point. Usually, of an evening race, it'll be an hour and a half racing. Of a weekend, it could be 2 hours up to 4 or 5 hours, depending on the course we run. The courses are all depending on the tide and the wind. As I say, an evening course could be racing down to Rock Ferry, across the river to Garston, back to Bromborough, and then back through the line again. We'd probably do that a couple of three laps, possibly, all depending on the tide at the time.
Now, one thing that might be on people's minds is how physically fit you have to be to survive a race.
There's nothing really strenuous on board. The hardest thing for anybody is just to be a little bit flexible, be able to climb over a step, for instance. So we're stepping on and off the boat from the slipway. We're stepping from one boat to another boat, but there's nothing overly strenuous at all, to be honest.
And is there help available?
There's always help available. Normally we have a sighted member of crew will get onto the launch first to assist anybody getting on the boat from the slipway, and vice versa. We'll have one of the sighted members to get on board the yacht and assist getting the other person onto the yacht from the launch.
And to be clear, the launch is the boat that takes you from the jetty to the yacht?
That's right, yes. It's an open boat, probably around about the 23, 24 foot mark, carries 12 people. It's got a step, sort of doubles as a seat. So it's quite comfortable to get on and off. It's just a simple step straight up. And
when the race is finished, you need to get back to the jetty, and presumably you're in the same launch boat, are you?
That's right, yes. Once the boat's on the mooring, all the boats have got to be on the mooring before the launch will then start coming around, collecting people from the yachts. As you're back on the mooring, the covers are put on the boats. Everybody gets onto the foredeck, then waiting for the launch to come. As the launch comes, he positions himself alongside. People on the launch will actually hold onto the yacht, and then it's just a matter of stepping down onto the launch. It's quite safe.
I was going to ask you about safety because I'm not a particularly experienced sailor, and that sounds a bit scary to me. But it is safe, is it?
It's safe. We've had no problems at all. There's obviously some risk involved with anything, but it is minimal. If we deem it not to be safe at all, we just won't sail.
And more generally, Martin, just talk me through the safety procedures that you have on the yacht and on dry land.
It all starts off in the club. As we get to the club, people get changed. There's no special clothing required. We do have waterproofs if needed, if the weather dictates. Everybody's given a life jacket. Explain to them how it works. They are all automatic life jackets, so anybody should happen to fall in, which nobody ever has, they will automatically inflate. Everybody's guided from the club down to the slipway and guided onto the launch. Everybody takes a seat on the launch, no problem at all, straight out to the yacht, step on board the yacht, and they're guided round. First time they're on board the yacht, they're actually guided round to show them where everything is, have a feel around if they've got no sight at all.
What advice would you give to visually impaired people listening to this who are thinking, well, I'm not really sure, it sounds a little bit, I'm not entirely sure whether I want to do this. What advice would you give them?
I'd say come and try it. It's so relaxing. It's also getting to work as a group. When I first lost my eyesight back in 2005, as it deteriorated, I became socially isolated. The thing that I found after getting involved with this, it draws you in, and it's so rewarding. You're working as a team, you're working on a level playing field with everything else. There's no restrictions as to what you can and can't do. If you give it a try, you find it most rewarding.
And do you have any other ambitions in terms of sailing?
I think I've met most of my goals. As I started off sailing, I was on the jib sheet with the guy I sail with in the Royal Mersey Yacht Club. I do everything on the boat now. I mainly helm the boat, so I'm more than happy with what I've progressed to, and I'm quite competitive, and say so myself. There's always things down the line to try. There may be the tall ships in the future. I don't know, but the sky's your limit.
So if listening to Martin has inspired you to think about sailing as a hobby, you can find out more from the club's skipper David Owen on 07793 543 529. That's 07793 543 529. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.